Thank you, listeners, for joining us. Today's Elko Live is a recorded conversation with our local lawmaker, Bert Gurr, in Assembly District 33. Gurr is on the road, so he took time out to visit with us for today's Elko Live. Among the topics you'll hear discussed today, representation in the Nevada legislature, fairness in women's sports legislation he's working on, as well as remembering Lee Hoffman. Today's Elko Live featuring our local lawmaker, Bert Gurr, who represents Assembly District 33.
We've been all over, mostly District 33, which, like I've said many, many times, goes from the California border to the Idaho border, from part of Tonopah to Utah, and takes Clark County out, and the southern, less than a third of Nye County. So Panaca, Pioche, Caliente, Ely, Eureka, Wendover, Jackpot, Wells.
And you're visiting all these places. Well,
I've been to most of them. I've been to most of them in the last 6-8 weeks, especially in the southern end, because these people never see anybody.
Well, and we can talk about that too, with just a sort of a nod to redistricting. There's not much that we can fix on that right now, obviously, but it is a huge underlying issue, Bert.
8 years away.
Yeah. So
from fixing that issue.
So let's talk about that. Obviously, you're out talking to people about their concerns, but you also want to encourage the rural vote. Rural votes matter.
Oh, man, it's huge. We have our governor today sitting there that got elected by the rurals for the most part. And he is very aware that the rurals were the group that pushed him over the top. So he's been really, really attentive and good. I can't say enough good about Lombardo and what he's done over the last 2 years, what he's trying to do. But getting out and voting right now, I don't care which party you vote. Well, I do. I want you to vote Republican. But just vote. Your vote does matter and it does count, and hopefully not more than once, but get out and vote.
So, Bert, there's something we haven't really talked about locally, although I'm sure in certain circles it's the main topic, the Democratic Party supermajority that is looming in the Nevada House and Senate. And as you just talked about, Governor Joe Lombardo's power, that would be stripped.
That would be, it would make him an ineffective governor at that point because he couldn't do anything about bad legislation. And believe me, having any party, I don't care whether it's my party, your party, that party over there, in control of the entire state is bad. It's bad for representation. It's bad for good legislation because you don't have any power to vote up or down on it. It becomes, here's what we're doing, and the Democrat legislature says we're going to do this, and the governor can't stop it. We're going to do this. So it does skew the thing completely toward the urban areas, because that's where most of the representation is in the legislature. In Nevada, we are probably 17 to 22,000 difference in registered Republicans and Democrats. Democrats over Republicans. And yet in the legislature, I think it's 65, or maybe it's going to be more than that. Almost, if it goes to 100% representation, it won't be 100%, but we're over 65% of the people elected are Democrats right now. So the imbalance in power is horrible for good policy, good relationships, everything else. So we're working really hard, and the governor's pushing hard to get more Republicans elected to the Assembly. Well, there is a potential we could lose the Senate, but they're working on that too, and there's just a ton of money. You can't believe the money that goes into these races, Lori.
Well, and that's
gigantic.
That's exactly if people do want detailed information and to drill into these campaign reports that are required by law, you can visit the Nevada Independent website. The Nevada Independent is online, and there are just click on the election tab, and you'll just find piles of stories about what's going on. And as you mentioned, it's in the Assembly. The Democrats hold about a 2/3 supermajority. They control the 26 seats. There are 14 of which you're one of the 14 Nevada State Republicans. Now, there's not a lot of chatter about your seat. I think people feel pretty secure about your reelection.
Well, and I'm glad, always glad not to have too much to worry about. But, I'm concerned that our opponent has not been out anywhere. I don't even know who he is. I know his name. Never met him. Never seen him in an event anyplace. What kind of situation does that create? He's created the making me spend a lot of money to make sure he doesn't get elected, and then I get reelected. And he's not working at it. We've got to make sure that, it's my race is pretty safe. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, there have been several races, candidates, even in the local race for Elko County Clerk. The candidate who was challenged, incumbent Becky Plunkett, was a no-show at the candidate forum, and that was really the only opportunity for the public to see that person. So it is discouraging, Bert, when folks sign up for these things, but
they don't show up.
Right,
yeah.
They don't show up. They sign up, but they don't show up. So as you mentioned, in the Senate side, the Democrats, wow, they're one seat away from that 2/3 supermajority.
Yep.
So
yeah, it is. It's scary. Can I back up for a second?
Oh, please do.
Let me make sure that some people had an opinion on how I supported the last run at that clerk's office. I'm 100% behind Becky in her election process. She's grown into the job. She's doing a good job. I can see where some people don't think so, but I think she is. So I just wanted to say that.
Well, thanks.
Be on the record.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm sure that the incumbent county clerk appreciates that too. And that's all we need to do. And moving on from that.
Okay.
So we can obviously talk about the local races if there is something that you wanted to chime in, given the time that we have. Now, what we're just talking about, though, with the representation between, the Nevada, the Democrats and the Republicans and the rurals not being represented due to redistricting. So it does beg question 3, Bert. And we know that the major parties are saying vote no on question 3. But can you see how that would be confusing to voters? As you mentioned, we have Democrats and Republicans about neck and neck when it comes to registration, but about half the voters in Nevada are registered as something else. But they're kind of on the sidelines for at least the primary part of this process.
Well, yeah, they are, but they can also register. They could run an independent candidate. They can run the independent candidate that they want in there for office just in the open general election. That's a possibility. If it were just an open primary, it may be an okay situation, but it isn't. That bill or that initiative does not just do open primaries. It goes to ranked choice voting. And your vote, no matter what you do, may not count at all when it gets done. Because if your candidate does not get enough votes to be in the top 3 or 4, your vote gets thrown out. Or your vote gets allocated to somebody else. I mean, it is a disaster when you get through the process. And it's very hard to explain, it's hard to understand, and that's what makes this so bad. Believe me, I do not like initiative petition voting. That's a bad way to legislate. There's no open discussion, there's no back and forth, there's no sitting and deliberating. It's some paid signature people running around out there saying, sign this is a good bill, because they're getting paid per signature. And the threshold anymore in Nevada is getting too low to make any sense, because we have many, many more people than we have in the past. And when you only have to have 10% of the population's, 1.3 million down here in Vegas? It gets out of hand. It looks like a bunch of people are in control of this, and they're not. People don't even know. They walk through a grocery store or in front of a post office, and somebody says, will you sign this? Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. We want open primaries so everybody can vote. Everybody makes a decision whether they're going to be independent, whether they're going to be Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian, or whatever else is out there. They have the opportunity to make that decision right then. But when you sign that petition for open choice, open primaries, you got to know that isn't the end of it. And that's the issue behind all this. It's people pushing for reasons that don't work. In other states, it hasn't gone well. Some of them would like to be out of the thing, and they're trying.
Bert Gurr is our lawmaker in Assembly District 33, and we're recording this conversation. He's on the road, and we'll be talking about a variety of issues today, including this balance in both the Senate and the Assembly. As we've noted, about 30% of active voters in Nevada are Democrat, but 29% Republican, 65% of the lawmakers, as we're talking about, represent the Democratic Party because of that population in Las Vegas. Where is that where you are? In fact, you are right now as we're talking, recording this interview?
We're here staying with a friend so we can go on through Pahrump and back up through Caliente and stuff. So yeah.
Okay, just to stop. So let's talk in back to this balance, Bert. Let's talk about redistricting, because that's also something that we've tried to explain. Even people in rural Nevada, we were entirely caught off guard by this with this redistricting, especially when it came to far-flung places like Owyhee, and you don't represent Owyhee anymore.
Nope. I don't represent anything north of Carlin. It goes up that, you kind of draw a line from Carlin north through up to the Indian Reservation, then it turns and goes around the Indian Reservation and goes to Idaho. But yeah, redistricting, gerrymandering, however you want to call it, both parties do it when they're in power. They try and make their districts align with their philosophies for the next 10 years. And that's what happened in the state. Now, I think, and a lot of us think, that maybe there ought to be an independent commission that does this versus lawmakers doing it. Because we still don't know how it got to the way it is. People have asked questions. Assemblyman Hafen filed a lawsuit against it. I joined in with him, had to back off of it because of the money involved in the time, because it was going to cost $3 or $4 million. And I don't know if Greg has it. I know I don't. So we just backed off, but that doesn't mean it's gone away. It seems illegal to do what they did, and judges haven't really looked at it. So I think the best way to go with it in the future is with a legislative commission, or a commission on legislative issues outside of the elected officials screwing with the system and making it bad. I mean, some of these districts in Vegas are, 12 square blocks, and I'm 50,000 square miles. So it doesn't make sense. Now, yes, we don't have that many people in that amount, but the people who live in these rural towns don't get much in the way of representation because their representative is all over the state.
Right, and we can point back to Owyhee. Their representative is in Sparks, and it's only convenient when it's a highly publicized political issue that those folks can make a trip out to Owyhee, as we've seen demonstrated. So,
in a lot of cases, yes.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Now, their representative in the Assembly has been very active about it. She worked hard for that part of her district. She and her husband, who was a senator, both worked hard on it. It was a highly publicized issue, but she was more concerned about education and the kids up there than the politics involved. So I just wanted to throw that out. Alexis Hansen did a really good job doing what she's paid to do, or what she's elected to do, not paid to do, elected to do. Which brings up another one in my mind. White Pine has been trying for years to get that old school, get the kids into a new school from K to 8. Anyway, and we're working on that. I'm submitting a bill on that again. Pete and John both did over sessions, and nobody paid any attention to the White Pine kids. So we'll see what we can do.
Oh, good. That's important, and hopefully we can spend a little time. I know you are working on some legislation. We're going to talk about probably the highest profile piece, just in one quick nod to redistricting. So I think the initiative you talked about, is it Fair Maps Nevada? Is that something that you've researched? Are you behind that?
No, I haven't seen that at all.
Okay, that's the group that was working on, and I believe they may have lost a legal challenge. So we can loop back around once we get through the election, right, and talk about that. All right.
See how it goes. Sure.
So, yeah, the time we have with Bert Gurr, our local lawmaker in Assembly District 33. So we had a brief conversation, Bert, and you want to make sure people understand that what you're representing is, you said it's fairness in women's sports. And is this different than AB 374, what you're bringing back, or is it the same?
It's going to look different, yeah. But the same intent was to keep biological males out of female sports. And that's the intent behind the bill. I just want it to be fair for everybody involved. This is not a hate bill. This is not I'm anti-trans. This is not I'm anti any of those things. I think anybody out there who has daughters, granddaughters, great-granddaughters who want to play sports, and we've had all of them, I think it's just to be fair to them, and scholarships don't disappear, things don't go away. Now, there's so many nuances to this thing that we're going to try and address as the bill gets finalized. It truly has nothing to do with my opinion about whether or not you ought to be this or that or anything else. I am not anti anything. I'm for fairness in women's sports. When you see a full-blown biological male, we're bigger. We have bigger bone structure. We have bigger hearts. We have bigger lungs. We have, just different. We're built different. And when you're born with an XX or an XY, that's what you're born with. Now, if you're born with both, like I'm hearing some people are, I mean, I know that happens in humans as well as in animals. I don't know what we do about that yet, but we'll work through that in the bill. We don't want anybody to be left out, but we certainly don't want young women to be hurt playing sports or to lose scholarships or the opportunity to be educated. So that's where this bill's headed, is just fairness. And I'm working with a group called the International Council on Women's Sports. And a legislator out of Idaho who's passed a similar bill already in the Idaho legislature. I'm hearing that their rules in Idaho were different than ours, but we're trying to work through all this. So somewhere around the first part of February, we had to have all the language worked out. And hopefully this year, this next session, the Democrats will hear the bill. And that's really what I want to do, is open the conversation and discussion to see if we can get something that works for everybody. I know that's a big lift, but that's what I'm hired to do, I guess.
We're talking with Bert Gurr, and in referencing the last session's attempt at AB 374. And so just again to make it clear, because as you said, it's a work in progress, the bill at that time, it set the gender on the birth certificate as what dictated which sports students would compete in. And I know in a conversation with you, you said transgender athletes need protection too. And so, so how does this revised bill, or how does it address that? As you said, that's
in AB 374, it was not addressed. That's where we're finding out all these things as we go through this, that we've got to find ways to take care of that. Maybe the pathway is an individual league for people who identify one way or the other, and that would be okay with me. You don't see the other way much, where women want to get into men's sports. You just don't see it. Why is that? That's a question I've got to figure out in my own mind. You don't see women crossing over, and I know some women who competed clear into high school in football, and they got into high school in football and went, maybe not. I also know that a friend of mine that I won't name, but wrote me a letter and said that she had seen the differences as early as 9th grade in men and women's volleyball, and how boys started to mature more than women. Not more than women, but got bigger and stronger. And women's volleyball has a shorter net. It's not as tall as men's. So there's all sorts of things that we don't know enough about yet, that I don't. So we're going to clear up on the bill before it's all done. We've got to, if we're going to make it work.
So I guess the latest too, Bert, and I'm sure you've been following this in the UNR volleyball situation. The latest is that the Mountain West Conference Commissioner said that this is not what we celebrate in college athletics. She described feeling heartbroken over what's transpired because 4 teams now have canceled against San Jose State, Boise State, Southern Utah, Utah State, and Wyoming. Now, they're not saying, explicitly why they're forfeiting. We do know our governor has joined other Republican governors in Western states. And I think, too, Bert, maybe the question is why, does this really belong in the political realm? Isn't this something that, the college sports could take on? Certainly, why do we have legislation for this kind of thing?
Well, we've got Title IX, which is federal legislation. And so, I hear what you're saying, and maybe colleges could, but we have federal legislation that women fought for years to get their own sports leagues. Now, with the changes that our current president made in Title IX, it's thrown that all askew, and it's made it more difficult. So individual states are trying to figure it out too, whether or not we have to legislate it, whether or not we should legislate it. And in the interim, while they're having these questions, I think we have to do something to protect women in sport. And that's why I'm running the bill. It's to protect women in sport more than anything else. And I can go on and on about a lot of reasons, but that's my main reason.
And just, again, just pointing out in all fairness and balance, and I know you appreciate that, Bert, so that's why it's great to have these conversations. San Jose's coach has said that, now they have security and police escorts involved when the team takes the court. And so, again, we're at a different place at college athletics, and it's politicized. It's politicized, and I think that's what's disappointing to so many people, is using this as yet another political issue.
Well, and I think that generated from the top of the leadership in this country down to make it that way. And I apologize for saying, I don't apologize for it. He made a mistake when he changed Title IX. There was so much work done to it. So many people fell on their swords over Title IX, and now we have a president who, at the stroke of a pen, changed Title IX. So, yeah, this is going to be a tough lift for everybody. Everybody's going to be involved in it.
So if we brought it back home, we could say that among the most important local issues for the community, rather than women's sports bill, would be air service development. And so You want to talk about that?
Yeah, there's the Nevada, what is it called? Air Alliance?
Yeah, the Flight Alliance of Northeast Nevada. Yeah.
That's a different group. There's a state group called the Nevada Air Service Alliance, I think, or Air Service, I don't know. Reese Keener's now chairman of it, the mayor of Elko.
Okay.
And they're working on the same type of bill, and I'm working with them again, and we're going to try and get this thing passed to get, it sounds like we're going to get air service. It's getting financing and money in place to incentivize air service. You can't force anybody to fly into Elko. What we can do is what the city and county are doing right now, and in that through FAN, the Flight Alliance of Northeastern Nevada, is they're funneling money into SkyWest to keep them flying into Elko on the schedule they've got. And we're going to keep pushing that direction to try and help all these counties that don't have air service or don't have good air service, so we can get better air service. I think Elko's done a yeoman's job putting this together. I think between the county and the city, they're paying $1.5 million a year. Keep that one flight a day in and out of Elko.
Yeah, and they did get buy-in for this coming fiscal year too from Lander County, which was significant. So yes. Yeah, about $250,000. So yeah, it's a regional airport. Yeah,
it's a regional airport, and that makes sense. But we have White Pine, who has an airport that could support small capacity airline. Eureka, probably not. I don't know about any of the other small communities. Pahrump, of course, has an airport out there, but nobody else is in the same spot we are, except for White Pine, where air service is critical to getting in and out when we're 400 miles from most of the major hubs in Elko or in Nevada. When you have to fly out of Nevada to get back into Nevada, it seems to not make any sense to me. So we're going to keep pushing that bill.
Thanks, Bert. Talking with Bert Gurr. And with the time we have left, because you are on a tight schedule, you're on the road, we are now in early voting, in-person early voting. Now, we do know that Republicans did have a big problem with that, but things may have turned around a bit. Is that a fair assessment, Bert?
I hope so. I know there's a lot of push to do that, and it's, Republicans are pretty much, this is the way I do it, and I'm going to do it that way. But with all the problems in the last couple of elections, I think they're going to get out early and vote, and I hope they do.
I know for me personally, I always loved the tradition of going to vote on Election Day, but I've really had to, break out of that tradition personally, just because it gets so busy and there are so many things. And as you pointed out, so many things could go wrong on Election Day, right? And you just don't want to miss that opportunity. So,
yeah, and I'm the same way. So I'm going to get mine done early too.
Yeah. In 2020, only 11% of Nevada voters were in person on Election Day. So it'll be really interesting to see how that figures into this year's.
Could go way down.
Yeah. So, and it does.
Or way up. Oh, you said in-person early voting. Yeah.
Yeah. Or other than, I guess, early voting. But so, there are several ways to vote. You can mail your ballot right now. You can go and vote in person early. But early voting is definitely what I think both parties are encouraging folks to do. Okay.
Yep.
Well, and I know
Absolutely.
And I'm sure that in your travels, Bert, there are conversations with the recent passing, a very untimely and sudden death of Lee Hoffman, and he is already deeply missed in our community.
And will be for a long time. He leaves a really big hole in Elko County politics, Republican politics. And he and Lynn were dedicated to going to meetings, so they were informed on all the issues, and it brought a real balance to a lot of us who can't get to the meetings. You talk to Lee and he could tell you what was going on. And he was always polite and always very, very generous with his time. And like I say, he'll be missed. And talking around with people in White Pine, because I've been spending a lot of time down there, he's absolutely missed. Statewide, there's going to be, at his celebration of life, from what I'm hearing, there will be a huge contingency from all over the state. I know that James Settlemeyer, a former senator, is going to be there. Pete's going to be there. I'm going to be there. John will be there. There's just a lot of people that had a lot of respect for him, and he's going to be sorely missed.
Yeah, there'll be an outpouring of support and care for certainly Lee Hoffman, the legacy, and his family. Thank you, Bert. Well, I want to make sure we got to the topics that I know those were the big topics today. We appreciate your time. Again, you're squeezing us in as you're on the road, and I want to make sure that we got to what you were hoping to address today.
I think so. Yeah. There's so many topics, and like I said earlier before we even started, I can go off over here, and then I can go over there, and I can go over there and talk about this issue and that issue. The more you get into this, the more things are on your mind. I've got issues in White Pine County. I'm going back there on Tuesday, for a pump project there on green energy, and there's a lot of controversy there. I mean, it's all over the place. So I could bring up more stuff later, and I will after the election. We'll talk about a lot more of this. But I appreciate your time, Lori, and I appreciate you allowing me to do this while we're traveling.
Absolutely. You are our representative. This is a bona fide news. We appreciate your availability. As I said, even when you're on the road, Bert always makes time to have these conversations. And so we'll have you back again. I guess in the meantime, people get out and vote, huh?
Yeah, and then if anybody has comments they want to make about any of the positions I've got at this point, they could send those to bert.gurr@asm.state.nv.us. That's my assembly email, and I check that every morning and every evening, and I respond to the legitimate concerns. People that write hate mail don't get much in the way of answers, so they can write me and talk about the issues, and I'll talk about them all day long.
Thank you, Bert. Appreciate your attention and your time, and safe travels for both you and your wife, Lee. And we will see you when you get back in town, and we'll have lots more to discuss. Thank you, Bert.
Yes, we will. Thank you, Lori.
Thank you for listening to Elko Live today. Early voting is underway, both in person along with universal mail voting, expands the opportunity for Nevadans to cast a ballot. And yes, you can still register to vote. You can do so in person at the polling place, or online, or with your local Elko County Clerk's office. Thank you for listening to Elko Live today. Find this program archived at elkoradio.com.